This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
The
Good
hour has
evening.
arrived. Yes, the hour has arrived for us to begin our meeting. I'm going to ask at this time if you are not speaking or presenting that you would mute your mics. We have feedback. We want to have a clear and concise meeting as possible. Thank you all for coming and being with us tonight as we take care of the business of Surrey County. And we are so delighted this evening to have with us Reverend Anthony Washington, the pastor of the First Baptist Church, Claremont, Virginia, and Surrey County, to come and lead us in our invocation. So we're going to ask Reverend Washington if he would come now.
Shall we pray? Father God, first of all, we want to honor you, want to bless you, want to praise you, but most of all, we want to thank you for this opportunity you give us to come together and do your bidding and your business in Surrey County. God, I pray that you strengthen the leadership, the leaders of Surrey County, as we make decisions that's going to be powerful as well as determinant for years to come. I pray you give them wisdom, understanding. I pray, God, that everything we do, that you will be pleased with, Father, and it'll be done for your glory. Let the citizens of Surrey County know that this task that is before them is not easy, but you have given them the ability to get it done. And so we thank you in advance for it. In your great name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Reverend Washington, for leading us in our invocation. And at this time, we will have a moment of silence. Thank you, everyone. Mr. Calhoun, are you there?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Mr. Calhoun, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag on tonight?
Yes, sir, I sure will. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. At this time, board members, you have before you the agenda for tonight, and we need to adopt the agenda. If there are no questions and you had an opportunity to review the agenda, we're going to ask Ms. Chapman if she would give us a roll call vote on adoption of the agenda for the business of Surrey County on tonight.
Yes, sir. If there are no questions, roll call vote. Mr. Elliott?
Yes.
Mr. Drury?
Yes.
Ms. Little?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes? Mr. Calhoun?
Yes.
And Mr. Holmes, one more time, if you can hear us, if we could get your roll call vote. I know sometimes there's connectivity issues.
We do not have Mr. Holmes online. I spoke with him. I know he's probably here. Mr. Brown, could you do as per usual? I greatly appreciate it. But we do have a majority to accept the agenda for business of Surrey on tonight. The first item is our consent items. And board members, if you look at the consent items, we have before us the approval of draft minutes of our meetings from May and June. Also, we have before us payable reports for March, April, and May. We did not approve March and April. On our fourth meeting, we had that meeting continue. We had business that curtailed us at that time. And also, we have a budget amendment. Are there any questions on the budget amendment, the rail and trail grant for Graves Creek? If there are any questions on that item, do you have those questions now? We can direct them. If they're having questions to Mr. Harrison, I know he's here. If there are no questions on the budget amendment for rails and trails grant, then we have a budget amendment, a supplemental appropriations for the library. And that is dealing with the Blackwater Library in the Claremont District. Do we have any questions on that? If we do, we will direct those questions to Mrs. Rollins. Then number 5, we have the HRSD easement for the Dendron Water Tower. We have our legal team, Hefty and Wiley, here for any questions, if you have any questions on that item. And we're going to bypass number 6 just for a minute and go to number 7, the contract negotiations with our county administrator. We know that we voted our county administrator in as a permanent position in our June meeting, and the contract has been sent to all of the board members. One addition from the original contract, which you all have seen, it is to make a retroactive pay from from January 1 to the June hiring date. Are there any questions on that? And then we have number 6, senior recognition resolution that will be read this evening. If there are no questions on any of our consent items, the chair would entertain a motion now for acceptance of our consent items.
Michael Drury, so moved.
We have a
Judy
second.
Little. Judy Little, second.
It has been properly moved and second that we will accept the consent items that have been given to us on the agenda. There are no further questions. Ms. Chapman, we ask that you would give us a roll call vote on the consent items.
Yes, sir. Roll call vote on consent items. Mr. Elliott?
Yes.
Mr. Drury?
Yes.
Ms. Little?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
And Mr. Calhoun?
Yes.
Thank you.
The motion is carried. Thank you. We had one item in our consent item that I had no doubt that we would all vote in favor of, and that is item number 6, our senior recognition for Miss Violet M. Savage. She is a resident of Surrey County, and she lives in Mr. Drury's district. And at this time, I'm going to ask Mr. Drury if he would please take charge now as we recognize this special lady of the county.
Thank you, Chairman Elliott. This is a resolution to senior recognition of Miss Violet M. Savage. Whereas Miss Violet M. Savage, a resident of the Dendron District of Surrey County, Virginia, attained the age of 100 years on June the 19th, 2020. Whereas Miss Violet M. Savage was a dedicated homemaker to her 8 children, raising them single-handedly after the passing of her father. Whereas Miss Violet Savage has been a long-standing and faithful member of Mount Sinai Baptist Church in Knoxville, Virginia. Whereas the Board of Supervisors of Surrey County wishes to recognize this milestone in Miss Violet Savage's life and the many contributions that she has made to help Surrey County a better place for all citizens through her active participation in her community and the affairs of the community. Now therefore be it resolved that the Surrey County Board of Supervisors hereby extends its heartfelt appreciation to Miss Violet M. Savage for her endeavors aimed at improving the quality of life for the citizens of the county, and celebrate Miss Violet Savage for having reached the 100th year of her life. And be it further resolved that the original of this resolution be delivered forthwith to Miss Violet M. Savage, and that a copy of it be spread upon the records of Surrey County Board of Supervisors. And that is quite a milestone. I'm not sure that any member of her family is online. If they are, if they would speak up. Not hearing any. I hope that I think Miss Savage is in a nursing home at this point in time, but hopefully the time will come where we can present this in person to her. And thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Drury. I know it was an honor to recognize 100 years of life of Miss Savage, and we thank God for being with her these 100 years. And he has definitely set a high bar. Amen. And we hope that we can all reach one day if we be in good health. Thank you, Mr. Drury. At this time, we will move to our public hearing. The first item on the public hearing is the proposed budget amendment, the CARES Act, and we will turn this over to staff now. Ms. Rollins.
Yes, good evening, members of the Board of Supervisors, Mr. Elliott, Chairman, Mr. Drury, Vice Chairman, all of the members, and good evening to all that are attending virtually this evening. You do have before you a public hearing on the CARES Act funding. We advised the Board of Supervisors that the county had received $560,295 in CARES Act funding. We are asking this evening for those funds to be remanded to the fiscal year 1920 budget in the amount of, again, 562.95, and that is because the funds were actually received in fiscal year 1920. Obviously, we would have to carry forward any unspent allocations into the new fiscal year. In your agenda material, you do have some guidance that what we call the CARES Team Committee, which consists of several staff members in the county. We have been doing some brainstorming sessions to see exactly some of the specific uses for the CARES funding. We have not identified any specific amount that's tied to those specific activities, but we did want to provide you all this evening some of those ideas that we think would be good use of the CARES Fund. Obviously, there's a lot of information that's coming our way from several different agencies as to how different folks are thinking strategically about the use of those funds. And you do have that information in front of you, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Rollins, for your presentation. At this time, we do open up the CARES Fund Act to the floor for the public comments at this time. If there are any comments from the public, please feel free to express those at this time. If you would, just state your name and your district that you're from. If there are no comments from the floor, we will close the public hearing at this time. Are there any comments from board members on the CARES Act?
Mr. Chairman, in looking over the material, it's good to have these funds coming to the county and to the citizens of Surrey County. It's going to be a big help.
Thank you, Ms. Little. I concur. Any other board members?
I concur with her.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. If there are no other comments from the floor, are there any closing remarks from staff on the CARES Act?
Yes, sir. The recommended action for the Board of Supervisors this evening is to authorize the amendment to the CARES Act funding. Revenue source, of course, is the federal government in the amount of $562.95. As I mentioned, specific allocations for the areas and activities identified will be determined at a later date. Any unspent funds at the end of the expenditure period will be carried forward to the fiscal year 2021 budget. The items, we will not go over those this evening, but just for the edification of all on the call, the specific areas that we are looking at do pertain to economic development, public safety, health and welfare, information technology, dissemination of public information as pertains to COVID-19 impact, and of course, counter response as it relates to COVID relief, and additional support for towns that may be impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much. I'll be safe.
Thank you, Ms. Rollins, for your closing statements. Board members, you've heard the recommendation from staff. Are there any questions? If there are no questions, what is your pleasure on the recommendation?
I will
Mr.
move. Go ahead.
Mr. Holmes, go ahead.
I move that we recommend the request.
That we would accept the request, the recommendation from staff. Is that your motion?
Yes, please.
Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
It has been properly moved and second that we would accept the recommendations in regards to the CARES Act funding in the amount of $560,000 $6,295. Ms. Chapman, could you give us a roll call vote on the motion, please?
Yes, sir. Roll call vote. Mr. Elliott,
Yes.
Mr. Drury,
Yes.
Ms. Little,
Yes.
Mr. Holmes,
Yes.
and Mr. Calhoun.
Yes.
Thank you.
The motion is carried. Second item in public hearing is a comprehensive plan, a text amendment for Spring Grove Solar. And at this time, we will ask Mr. Saunders, if he's here, if he would come and give us a presentation.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Can you all hear me all right?
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay, good. Thank you. We do have item number 2 on the public hearings, the comprehensive plan text amendment 2020-01 from Spring Grove Solar 3 LLC. We also have, following that application, conditional zone rezoning REZ 2019-01, excuse me, that should be 2020-01, Spring Grove Solar 3 LLC, and conditional use permit 2020-02, Spring Grove Solar 3 LLC. At this time, Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a process recommendation. All 3 of these items are integrated in the same project and all require a public hearing and a presentation from the applicant. The applicant, as well as planning staff, recommend that allowing the applicant to give one comprehensive presentation on all 3 items, and it's recommended that we hold one public hearing on all 3 items at once. And then individually, I would provide a staff report about the particulars of each item prior to separate votes on each item. That's probably the smoothest way to do this in this setting, if you agree.
Thank you, Mr. Saunders. Don't have any problems. I know Ms. Powell is on the call. Just want to make sure that that's fine with our legal team. Ms. Powell? She was on the call.
Yeah,
I don't have
see her there.
I see her there as well. I
Yeah.
personally don't have any objections. There she is. Ms. Powell?
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can. Wanted to know if it would be fine. Mr. Saunders has made the recommendation that all 3 of these items, number 2, 3, and 4, be presented at one time because it's condoning, and that we would take one vote on all after the presentation. Just wanted to make sure that was fine with you from legal.
I'm fine with that if the applicant is fine with it, as long as each application is voted on separately and that the public has a chance to comment.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Powell. Okay, at this time, then we will hear from Mr. Bowers and his associates in their presentation.
Good evening. Chair Elliott, members of the board, Administrator Rollins, and Ms. Powell, and members of the staff and public joined us. Roger Bowers on behalf of Spring Grove Solar 3. We are before you tonight to request rezoning a development plan map amendment to rezone our 672 acre parcel south of Route 10 from the current A1 designation to an M1 district. We also request a conditional use permit to use this property for solar energy generation. If these applications are approved, the property and our project will comply with Surrey's 2018 solar ordinance. In keeping with that ordinance, this parcel is the right place for solar. It is on a main regional highway close to the existing Surrey West Industrial Park. It is well shielded on all sides from adjacent properties. Tract is adjacent to the existing Spring Grove solar facility that was approved in 2018 and will connect to the existing switchyard infrastructure that is now online and feeding energy to the transmission grid. This project maximizes the return to Surrey County on this investment in renewable energy generation that is already permitted and the transmission switchyard capacity that is already installed. To clarify, we are not asking for any new additional energy generation capacity. Tonight, we provide this presentation on the project as a whole for a consolidated public hearing because these applications all relate to one project. As requested by the board, we bring the whole project forward in these three applications to be heard concurrently. After the public hearing, if it is the board's pleasure, Mr. Saunders will present these applications individually for your consideration. We concur with his staff reports on these applications, and we would ask for your approval of the rezoning, the map amendment, and the conditional use permit. We meet in electronic format in accordance with the authorizations from this board and the Commonwealth to allow contiguity of government during these trying times. This project has important economic development potential for Surrey, and we have limited regulatory timeframes within which to build prior to completing our existing Spring Grove solar facility. We acquired this property in July of 2019 and immediately started discussions and planning on the project. The Planning Commission considered these applications on May 18th, 2020, and provided their recommendations for approval on all three to the board. This presentation can touch upon each application in turn with a brief summary, but complete details were provided in a binder, which we had delivered to staff and has been available in the planning department since February. We can go into details now, or if you wish, or after public comment, and we can respond to any specific questions or concerns that you may have. We thank staff for their hard work on these applications and appreciate the opportunity to present to the board. We provided that notebook and sent copies out to you, and we can go into an overview of each application individually, or I can pause and respond to any questions you may have. I can just touch upon the benefits to Surrey from this project at this time. Specifically with regards to our rezoning, we bring tonight a request to rezone the property from A1 to M1. We concur with staff's report on REZ 2019-01 and refer
Are there
you
any
to
questions from board members as what has been presented at this time thus far?
I'll just touch briefly upon the benefits to Surrey. Go ahead. Touch briefly upon the benefits of this project to Surrey County. Development does not deplete any water resources or require any new water, sewer, or other utility infrastructure.
Mr. Bowles, you may continue.
Yes,
If there's
sir.
anything else you have?
Yes. Just in closing, I think the property is well suited for a solar facility and does not require any additional infrastructure. It will increase the county's tax base and employment opportunities while maintaining Surrey's rural character. And we thank Mr. Saunders for his hard work and concur with the staff reports. And we hereby voluntarily proffer the conditional rezoning and accept the proposed CUP conditions with the suggested clarifications that we worked out with the Planning Commission. We appreciate your time and patience tonight and Please let me know if I can answer questions or reserve any time needed to respond after the public hearing.
Excuse me, Mr. Elliott? Mr. Elliott? Mr. Elliott?
Mrs. Little, I'm advising Mr. Elliott that he's having some audio trouble. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
On the call, Mr. Elliott is.
Thank you, Mr. Bowers. Thank you. Okay, I'm on that. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
We are definitely going to need everyone else to be muted.
In terms of the cesspools.
Hello, can you? Everyone can hear me now? Am
Yes, sir.
can I be heard now?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir,
very
Mr.
good.
Elliott.
All right, I'm doing it by phone now. Okay, no problem. Okay, Mr. Bowers, thank you for your presentation and on these the three items: comprehensive plan text amendment, the conditional zoning, and the conditional use permit. Are there any questions now? Well, no questions. This is now open to the public for public comments. Are there any public comments? If so, just state your name and your district.
Yes, sir. My name is Ike Jones, Claremont District.
Yes, Mr. Jones.
I have a few questions concerning this solar project. And after reviewing the application, I see that it will impact the wetlands, rain impact, also wildlife impact. I don't see any information from the Department of Game and Island Fisheries saying what the wildlife impact would be for this parcel of land, turn it into the solar farm. Also, the Route 10 impact, as far as traffic situation. Seeing that this facility would have its entrance right on Route 10, how is that going to impact the main throughway, Route 10, as far as for the county residents getting to and from? Thank you, Chairman Elliott and the board.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Are there any other public comments for this hearing?
This is Chelsea Jones, Surrey District.
Yes, Ms. Jones.
I just wanted to speak. I'm the Secretary of the Chamber of Commerce, and I'm also speaking on behalf of Harold Jones for President of the Chamber of Commerce. And we just like to say that we would hope that y'all would approve all three of the things before you now for Spring Grove Solar, in hopes that it will continue to bring economic success to our area. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and board members.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Any other comments? Any other public comment? Do we have any other public comments? If not, we will close the public hearing at this time. Are there any comments from board members in regards to these three items?
Mr. Chairman, the first person that had a public comment, if Mr. Bowers could cover that for that person and the rest of those who are listening, I would appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Little. Yes, that can be done. We have a document in our folder regarding the wildlife and the wetlands. So, Mr. Bowers, can you give some more insight on that?
Yes, sir. We appreciate Mr. Jones' comments. In fact, we've done extensive wetlands studies on this site, and the project will not be built into any wetland areas. There are wetlands along the sides of the project, but we will be avoiding those. We'll be only working in the upland areas. With regards to the impacts on wildlife, again, having both of those corridors open along the sides of the parcel will allow wildlife to still move through the project. And then as the project proceeds in its, as it goes to the permit by rule, which is the second stage of approvals we need to go through at the state level, we will submit information to the Department of Game and Inland Fisheries, and we must comply with their recommendations on how we build the facility. Lastly, with regards to traffic on Route 10, we understand that there are truck deliveries as planning does. And one of the things that we worked out with Mr. Saunders in planning is not only will we be set back, but that the entrance gate will be several hundred feet into the project, so that trucks that slow down and turn into the project off of Route 10 won't be held up on the road. They will have space to turn in and fully get into. Several trucks, even if they come in a row, will have the opportunity to turn in, and our entrance gate will be set back from Route 10 by several hundred feet. So that will address the traffic concerns. And we have in our CUP conditions that we will sit down with the county and with VDOT as part of the site plan process and come up with a traffic management plan to do a good job of handling any concerns that might come up or any impacts that we have in that regard. We appreciate Ms. Jones' comments, and we do feel that we will bring good economic opportunity to the county, and know that the existing solar project has already brought significant revenue from the increase in land value due to solar use, in addition to the equipment taxation. So we appreciate the opportunity to bring this project forward.
Thank you, Mr. Bowers. I think you answered that. Thank you, Ms. Little, for bringing that to my attention. Are there any other comments from our board members at this time?
Chairman Elliott, Mike Drury.
Yes, Mr. Drury.
Just to Mr. Bowers, it's my understanding, just make a comment again on the buffering from Route 10, as well as the buffering of any surrounding landowners and homes. And the second comment, just like for you to address, is I think many of us board members have gotten concerns about roadways. Of course, not on this edition, but on the first phase. And how would that be addressed if there are any roadway issues of physical condition on Route 10? And that's it. And thank you, Mr. Chair and Mr. Bowers.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Drury. With regards to the buffering, the required setback in industrial zone would be 75 feet. We have voluntarily increased that required setback to 200 feet along Route 10. But the reality is there's a low area there along Route 10 for a significant amount of the frontage. So the closest panels will be set up to Route 10 will be another couple of hundred feet behind that setback. So it'll be about 400 feet back from Route 10, and that existing lowland area will be retained. The existing vegetation will be retained. Likewise, along both sides of our project, it's shaped like a upside down triangle or a strawberry, hanging there on the side. Along both sides, the long angles, there is significant wetlands that we do not impact, so that we're set back almost a couple hundred feet from neighbors, and we are about 800 feet of wetland and swamp areas from the nearest residence. There's one residence that's along Hollybush that's set back a little bit, but that's still hundreds of feet from where there will be solar panels. So that's there will be this site will be fully screened by existing vegetation, and if there is other than as you drive by Route 10, you will look in the entrance road and be able to look down. But that's, as I mentioned before, several hundred feet long to the entrance gate. The gate won't be right up on the road. All of this is what we've learned from our existing facility, how to set back in and finding a site that is well shielded and meets well with the M1 guidelines. As regards to the roadways, we recognize that there is a potential for impact from this project, and we have agreed to sit down and provide as part of our site plan a traffic impact plan to make sure that we don't back up on Route 10. If we do any damage to Route 10, we will repair that. We had tried to offer some additional funding to handle some of the other roadway concerns that have come from the earlier project. Unfortunately, because of the reasonable relationship requirements in zoning, we were unable to provide direct funding for that. But we, as you will take up later this evening, we have offered some additional payments through the voluntary payment agreement that will give Surrey some unrestricted funds that can be used for those other traffic improvements if desired. And we recognize and will continue to address all of the traffic impacts that this particular project has on in any way we can.
Thank you, Mr. Bowers.
Oh, are there any other board? No other comments from the board? Are there any closing remarks by staff?
Good evening, Mr. Elliott. Yes, is it your pleasure now that I do individual staff reports on each items? I believe, as Ms. Powell pointed out, I think she wants to be sure that each of these items are voted on individually.
Wait, did you hear me?
No, sir, I didn't hear you.
Yes, that will be my request this time. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
okay, I'm sorry. I will get started on that right away. Thank you. Okay, so The first application is Comprehensive Plan Text Amendment number 2020-01. Applicant is Spring Grove Solar 3 LLC. Parcel is parcel 26-4C. It's approximately 672 acres in Spring Grove, Virginia. It's approximately 3/4 of a mile southwest of the intersection of Hollybush Road and Route 10. Currently, the use is agricultural and rural, and the surrounding land uses are agricultural and rural. Spring Grove Solar 3 LLC has applied for an amendment to the Surrey County Comprehensive Plan, specifically to amend the plan's development plan map to designate the subject property as an industrial future land use, as it is currently classified as agriculture and timberlands land use. The applicant is part of the Urban Grid firm, which received a conditional use permit, CUP number 2018-03, to develop utility scale solar electric generating facilities with a generating capacity of up to 400 megawatts, and another CUP number 2018-04 to construct a utility switchyard. Due to the first two projects under this approval, Colonial Trail West, which is nearly completed, and Spring Grove 1 Solar Farm, which is currently under construction, requiring more land than expected to generate the desired amount of electric power, the applicants have acquired a 672-acre parcel adjacent to their existing property to facilitate the production of the entire approved 400 megawatt capacity. The Surrey County Solar Ordinance, adopted in December 2018, and after the aforementioned CUPs, disallows utility scale solar projects in the AR Agricultural Rural Zoning District, only allowing such facilities to be located in M1 or M2 General Industrial Zoning Districts and with conditional use permits. As the subject parcel is not currently zoned M1 or M2, nor is it designated in the development plan map of the comprehensive plan as industrial, a comprehensive plan amendment and rezoning of the property is required, in addition to the granting of a conditional use permit. Before you currently is the proposed change to the development plan map of the comprehensive plan, which adds a designation for industrial in the area of the subject parcel, which would support the consideration for rezoning suitable for a utility scale solar project under our current solar ordinance. A similar proposal was before the Planning Commission at their December 16, 2019 meeting to amend the development plan map, as well as to add supporting text relative to solar projects in the county. However, in response to the Planning Commission's recommendation to deny this application back in December, due to the fact that we were on the eve of adopting a new comprehensive plan, the applicant rescinded their request to change the text and only wishes to have their property designated as industrial on the development plan map. At the February 6, 2020 Board of Supervisors meeting, there was a failed motion to approve this application. Those voting against the motion stated that it was for a lack of information regarding the project as a whole. Therefore, the applicants have chosen to reapply for this action, along with the other required applications for the project together. At their May 18, 2020 meeting, the Surrey County Planning Commission recommended approval of this item to the Board of Supervisors. In regard to the classification of the subject parcel as industrial in the development plan map of the comprehensive plan, planning staff identifies the following strengths and weaknesses. Strengths: the application is serving to facilitate a previously approved conditional use permit. The subject parcel is adjacent to the existing project and associated infrastructure. The subject parcel is adjacent to a major thoroughfare. The subject parcel is adjacent to the VDOT facility and is a short distance from the Surrey West Industrial Park, both similar industrial uses and sites. The parcel is not comprised of prime agricultural land currently in production. A future industrial use here would expand the county's tax base due to the increased value of the land and the addition of machinery and tools to the site. Weaknesses: while the proposed use requires an industrial development designation, the proposed project would not generate as many new jobs as other industrial projects might. And the application is unfortunately on the eve of adoption of a request of a revised comprehensive plan. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Saunders. Fellow board members, we've heard from our planning commission in regards to our comprehensive plan text amendment, conditional rezoning, and conditional use permit. If there are no questions, what is your pleasure on this recommendation from the planning commission?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Ms. Powell speaking. Just so I'm clear as to the motion that you're asking, are you asking for the board to vote on the map amendment first, or are you asking them to take a vote on each individual application? Because it seems as though Mr. Saunders provided a report just as it relates to the map amendment.
Just for the plan text amendment, item number 2?
Yes, sir. I would entertain a motion just on the comprehensive plan text amendment at this juncture.
Thank you, sir. Fellow
Yes.
board members, what is your pleasure on item number 2, comprehensive plan text amendment?
I'm sorry. I move that we would approve the resolution, I think it's 2020-01. The
Yes,
first,
ma'am.
the first portion of this leg of the 3 for approval by the board.
Have a motion. Can we get a second?
Mr. Chair, Michael Dre, I'll second.
It's been properly moved and second that we would accept the comprehensive plan text amendment 2020-01. Ms. Chapman, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Roll call. Mr. Elliott?
Yes.
Mr. Drury?
Yes.
Ms. Little?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes? Mr. Calhoun?
Are they still there?
Mr. Holmes or Mr. Calhoun, can you hear us?
Or it looks like
Can you
there
hear
are.
me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yes,
sir. I
Ms.
can
Holmes.
hear you.
Okay.
And I do see that
Yeah.
Mr. Calhoun is on. It just looks like he's muted. So he is here. He is just muted right now.
Did we get Mr. Holmes' vote?
Yes, sir. We did.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yes,
sir,
sir.
Mr. Calhoun. We can hear you.
Okay, sorry. I don't know what's wrong with my reception.
No worries. Sounds like we got everybody, though.
Are you waiting for my vote now?
Yes, sir. If you want to give it one more time.
Yes, please. Being employed by Dominion, and to be fair, I need to abstain from voting on this issue.
Yes, sir. We got that documented.
Thank you.
The motion is carried at this time for comprehensive plan text amendment 2020-01. Mr. Saunders, conditioning rezoning.
Yes, sir. This is conditional rezoning number 2020-01. Also Spring Grove Solar 3 LLC applicant on parcel number 26-4C. The application for conditional rezoning rather than a straight rezoning. A straight rezoning would simply change the zoning designation of the property to the proposed district such that all ordinance regulations for the newly designated zoning district would apply to the land, but no additional conditions would. In a conditional rezoning, some or all of the regulations from the underlying zoning district can be removed, and/or additional conditions can be voluntarily proffered by the applicant as part of their application. In this case, both elements apply. Some of the ordinance regulations are proposed to be removed, and additional conditions have been proposed. The applicant's signed proffers are enclosed. Proffers must be voluntarily submitted by the applicant. The locality cannot require or recommend any unreasonable proffer of the applicant. Applicants can amend their proffers once the public hearing has begun if the amended proffers do not materially affect the overall proposal. They have requested a conditional M1 General Industrial District rezoning from agricultural rural conditional M1. The purpose of the district generally is to provide an environment suitable for light industrial activities that do not conflict with adjacent uses. The entirety of its purpose is found in the ordinance summaries below in the staff report. The proposed proffers from the applicants are the following. Number one, setbacks. No building or structure shall be constructed on the property within A, 200 feet of Colonial Trail West, Route 10, or B, 75 feet of all other exterior boundary lines of the property, except to the extent necessary for vehicular and pedestrian access ways, utility easements, gates and fencing, signage, or other purposes specifically set forth in the site plan approval for the property. 2, buffer and screening standards. Buffers consisting of natural areas or landscaping or combinations thereof for the purposes of lessening the visual impact of the development of the property on adjacent land of a minimum width set forth in the ordinance as supplemented by these conditions will be provided and maintained except to the extent necessary for vehicular and pedestrian access ways, utility easements, signage, or other purposes specifically set forth in the site plan approval for the property. Vegetation with a mature height exceeding 25 feet shall not be required. Under section 5-403B, where existing or supplemental vegetation within the buffers provides full screening, opaque fencing shall not be required. Oversized, fallen, diseased, or dead plant growth may be removed from such buffer areas, and if so removed, additional plantings may be added to achieve the intent of this condition. Number 3, uses. The following uses shall be prohibited. Commercial use types: auction establishment, motor vehicle outside storage, motor vehicle repair service major, taxidermy, truck stop. Industrial use types by conditional use permit, recycling center, and transfer station. Proffers number 1 and number 2 are relatively straightforward. Based upon the applicant's proffer number 3, the uses conditionally allowed will be the following. Those proffered to be prohibited are struck through in your staff report. So there's a table in your staff report that shows all of the by right uses and all the uses by special use permit that are allowed in the M1 district. Those that are struck through in red are the ones that the applicants have removed and made prohibited under this conditional rezoning. But be aware, all of those that are still listed in black, you are approving with this conditional rezoning to be an approved use under this zoning, in addition to just those uses that would allow for the solar project that's proposed.
Thank you, Mr. Saunders. Fellow board members, are there any questions?
I just paused for a moment, Mr. Chair, if I could continue.
Okay. Continue, sir.
Okay. Conditional zoning and proffers have been the subject of General Assembly action in recent years in efforts to protect the development community from unreasonable conditions of localities. Some of these efforts have had the unintended consequence of causing alarm on the part of localities concerned they would step into a legal trap by considering conditional rezoning, with many localities not accepting conditional rezoning at all. With certain exceptions, proffered conditions are deemed reasonable if one, they're voluntary proffered in writing by the owner prior to a public hearing before the governing body. Two, the rezoning itself gives rise to the need for the conditions. Three, the conditions have a reasonable relation to the rezoning. And four, all conditions are in conformity with the comprehensive plan. Even though the applicants have specific proposed use in mind with this request, they have left a large number of potential uses in the conditional M1 zoning requested. While these other uses may benefit the county tax base if developed, the expectation from staff following conversations with the applicant was that there would only be 3 uses requested: agriculture, silviculture activities, and utility service major. The applicants contend that these additional uses would open up opportunity for other industrial uses to be developed on the property in case a conditional use permit for the solar project is not approved. Whether this is seen as a strength or a weakness is up to the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors to determine. At their May 18th, 2020 meeting, the Surrey County Planning Commission recommended approval of this item to the Board of Supervisors. In regard to the rezoning of the subject parcel to M1 General Industrial, planning staff identifies the following strengths and weaknesses. Strengths: the application is serving to facilitate a previously approved conditional use permit. The subject parcel is adjacent to the existing project and associated infrastructure. It's also adjacent to a major thoroughfare, the VDOT facility, and Surrey West Business Park, which are similar industrial uses and sites. The parcel is not comprised of prime agricultural land currently in production, and future industrial uses here would expand the county's tax base. Weaknesses: utility scale solar in this location could bar more desirable industry from it. That completes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry for cutting you off a little earlier. Are there any questions from fellow board members? If not, what's your pleasure on item number 3, conditional rezoning, number 2019-01 from Spring Grove Solar?
Forgive me, that's a typo. It's 2020-01. Sorry.
Mr. Chairman,
Rezoning 2020-01. Yes, Ms. Little.
do we have to have a public hearing for this too? I mean, any comments from the public since we got to do them separately? Or do we feel like we done had all the?
We did.
Are we good?
We did all the public hearing when it was first presented.
Okay, thank you.
We should be good with public hearing.
All right. Well, I recommend approval of rezoning 2020-01.
I recommend that we also, that we would. Second.
You got a second motion, Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
It has been properly moved and second that we will accept the conditional rezoning 2020-01. If there are no other questions from board members, Ms. Chapman, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Roll call, Mr. Elliott.
Yes.
Mr. Drury.
Yes.
Ms. Little.
Yes.
Mr. Holmes.
Yes.
Mr. Calhoun.
Again, being employed by Dominion, for fairness, I abstain from voting on this issue.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion is carried. The next item is conditional use permit. Back to you again, Mr. Saunders, and I'm gonna try not to interrupt.
You're fine. Thank you, sir. Conditional use permit number 2020-02, Spring Grove Solar 3 LLC, parcel 26-4C. The conditional use permit is required in addition to a rezoning under our current solar ordinance. And this conditional use permit does not allow for any additional generating capacity beyond conditional use permit 2018-03. The conditions that are put forward for this conditional use permit are as follows. Number one, the total height of the solar energy systems, including panels and mounts, shall not exceed 18 feet above the ground when orientated at maximum tilt. This shall not apply to the power poles, substation equipment, and the connections to the existing transmission lines on the property. Number two, the solar energy systems, including their security fences, shall be fully screened from public rights-of-way and adjacent residential properties with existing or proposed vegetation. Three, any electrical wiring used in the systems shall be underground, trenched, except A, wiring directly connecting individual panels or arrays of panels, B, where necessary to avoid natural obstacles, wetlands, or electrical interference, or C, where wiring is brought together for interconnection to system components, substations, and/or the local utility power grid. Number four, prior to the issuance of permits for installation of equipment, a plan for decommissioning the facility in substantial compliance with the decommissioning plan submitted to the county on February 20, 2020 shall be provided. Each solar energy system shall be decommissioned and removed within 18 months after that facility ceases electricity generation for a continuous 12-month period. Decommissioning shall include removal of solar collectors, cabling, electrical components, and any other associated items. Number five, installation of solar panels is permitted to provide generation within the previously approved maximum of 400 megawatts of power generation under CUP 2018-03. The applicant may lease portions of the property to individual tenants, each of solar facility tenant, each of whom may develop, own, and operate one or more solar energy systems on the portion of the property that it leases, each a permitted solar project. Each permitted solar project shall constitute a separate power generating project, each having its own related facilities and substation, which may be operated under separate ownership and control or as phases under the same ownership. Each permitted solar project shall be established pursuant to a separate site plan to be filed with and approved by the county. The site plan will identify the location, size, layout, phasing, power generation allowance, etc. for each permitted solar project. The land encompassed by each permitted solar project as shown on the approved site plan for that permitted solar project shall be subject to the requirements of this conditional use permit, independent from any other permitted solar projects or other parts of the property. The solar facility tenant shall be identified on the site plan submitted for each permitted solar project, and that solar facility tenant shall have the same rights and responsibilities as the applicant for the portion of the property that is included in that permitted solar project. The conditions of this conditional use permit shall apply independently to each of the permitted solar projects, provided that a solar facility tenant shall not be responsible for any development or lawful operation of another tenant's permitted solar projects. Any zoning violation or violations occurring with respect to one permitted solar project shall not constitute a violation with respect to any other permitted solar project, and no proceeding to revoke this conditional use permit as to one solar project, nor any resulting revocation shall impair the validity of this conditional use permit with respect to any other permitted solar project where this conditional use permit shall run with the land. Number 6, the applicant or applicable solar facility tenant shall A, develop a traffic mitigation plan in consultation with the county planning staff, the Virginia Department of Transportation, the Surrey County Sheriff's Office, and the Virginia State Police to identify and expeditiously resolve or mitigate traffic issues that arise during the construction or decommissioning of the facility, and B, repair public road damage in proximity to the facility attributable to the construction or decommissioning of the facility. Such repair to be conditions comparable to pre-existing conditions. As part of the plan during construction and decommissioning, an on-site staging area of at least 400 feet in depth, and during operations, an on-site staging area of at least 200 feet in depth shall be provided prior to any gate or badging locations, such that traffic coming into the facility shall not back up on Route 10. Number 7, fencing along the exterior of the facility shall be at least 6 feet and no more than 12 feet in height. Number 8, the zoning administrator may refer any of the site plans for a permitted solar project to a qualified consultant for review and comment at the applicant's or solar facility tenant's expense, as the case may be. Terms and conditions of which shall be determined in advance of the referral with the applicant's solar facility tenant. Number 9, the applicant or solar facility tenant, as the case may be, shall submit a report annually to the county administrator outlining the project permitting and development plan progress for its respective permitted solar project. Number 10, the applicant or solar facility tenant shall provide for construction phase third-party inspections and submittal of inspection reports to the Surrey County building official at the applicant's or solar facility tenant's expense for its respective permitted solar project. Number 11, prior to site plan approval, the applicant or solar facility tenant shall submit soils testing reports establishing baseline pre-installation conditions, and the applicant or solar facility tenant shall restore its site to pre-development soil conditions as part of the decommissioning process and as evidenced by post-decommissioning soil test for its respective permitted solar project. Applicant or solar facility tenant shall provide groundwater monitoring as required by the Surrey County Solar Ordinance. 12. Article 1, Section 505C, time limitations of the Surrey County Zoning Ordinance stipulates that any approved conditional use permit shall expire after 2 years from the date of approval if no substantial construction has taken place in accordance with the plans for which such use was granted, unless the board grants a longer period of time for good cause shown. Surrey Planning staff recommends the following 2 additional conditions. The property may only be utilized for the operation and maintenance of the solar generation facility to include supporting structures and infrastructure. Mass storage of electricity for transfer to the grid by battery or other means is not permitted. Number 14, the site plan for the project shall be in substantial conformity with the proposed Spring Grove 3 LLC preliminary site plan dated September 11th, 2019 and revised February 13th, 2020, which is enclosed in your packet. Also, a table in your staff report of considerations per the Surrey County zoning ordinance that should be considered when you do a conditional use permit. I won't read all those into the record, but I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have on any of those. Staff comments at their May 18th, 2020 meeting, the Surrey County Planning Commission recommended approval of this item to the Board of Supervisors. Planning staff have identified the following strengths and weaknesses of the application. The application serving to facilitate a previously approved conditional use permit. The subject parcel is adjacent to the existing project and associated infrastructure, a major thoroughfare, the VDOT facility, and Surrey West Business Park, both industrial uses and sites. The parcel is not comprised of prime agricultural land currently in production. A future industrial use here would expand the county's tax base, and the developments and proposed conditions seem to account for foreseeable impacts. The only weakness is that utility scale solar in this location could potentially bar more desirable industry from it. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Saunders, for giving us the details of the conditional use permit 2020-2 Spring Grove Solar number 3 LLC. Are there any questions from board members on this? If there are no questions from the board members, what is your pleasure on the recommendation from the Planning Commission for the conditional use permit? Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we would approve conditional use permit CUP 2020-02 Spring for the Spring Grove Solar 3 LLC.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second the motion.
It has been properly moved and second that we will accept the conditional use permit 2020-2 Spring Grove Solar 3. Ms. Chapman, roll call vote, please.
Yes, sir. Roll call, Mr. Elliott.
Yes.
Mr. Drury.
Yes.
Ms. Little.
Yes.
Mr. Holmes.
Yes.
Mr. Calhoun.
Again, being employed by Dominion for fairness, I abstain from voting on this action.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Motion is carried. Thank you, gentlemen, for a public hearing. And at this time, we will move to new business. The first item on new business is public hearing request in regards to the Confederate monument in front of our courthouse. At this time, I believe we have presenting the law firm of Hefty and Wiley.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. This is Ms. Powell. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
you can, Ms. Powell.
Okay, thank you. As of July 1, the General Assembly has provided local governing bodies the authority to remove, contextualize, relocate, or cover memorials to Confederate veterans. But in order to do that, the governing body must first have a public hearing. So if the board so chooses, a motion will need to be made to allow staff to advertise a notice for a public hearing to be held in August. And I believe that would actually be August 13th.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Powell. Fellow board members, you've heard the request for the public hearing on the Confederate monument. The tentative date for this public hearing will be August the 13th, 2020. Can we get a motion on the request for the public hearing?
So moved, Chair.
Mr. Chair, Mike. Second.
It has been properly moved and second that we would have a public hearing on the Confederate monument on the date of August the 13th. There are no questions. Ms. Chapman, roll call vote, please.
Yes, sir. Roll call, Mr. Elliott.
Yes.
Mr. Drury.
Yes.
Ms. Little.
Yes.
Mr. Holmes.
Yes.
Mr. Calhoun.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion is carried. Next item for new business is public hearing request for conditional use permit 2020-03. Mr. Saunders, I believe you're up to report.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an request for a public hearing, CUP number 2020-03, the Hart Bed and Breakfast. At the June 22nd, 2020 meeting, the Surrey County Planning Commission forwarded recommendations to the Board of Supervisors on conditional use permit number 2020-03. This is an application by Paul and Tina Hart for a bed and breakfast establishment. The subject property is 11133 Rolfe Highway, Elberon, Virginia, parcel number 27-33C. It's approximately 1/2 mile south of Old Borough Road on Rolfe Highway. And this item is before you tonight to request approval to advertise for a public hearing at the August 6th, 2020 Board of Supervisors meeting.
Fellow board members, you've heard the report from Mr. Sanders on the request for public hearing for the CUP 2020-03 for hot bed and breakfast. Get a motion on the request.
I move that we were. All right, yeah.
We have a motion on the floor for public hearing for the bed and breakfast. Could we get a second?
Mike Drew.
It has been probably moved and second that we will accept the motion for the public hearing 2020-03. If there are no other questions, Ms. Chapman, roll call vote, please.
Yes, sir. Roll call, Mr. Elliott.
Yes.
Mr. Drury.
Yes.
Ms. Little.
Yes.
Mr. Holmes.
Yes.
Mr. Calhoun.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion is carried. Next item on the new business is the proposed revenue sharing agreement with Spring Grove Solar 3 LLC. Mr. David Harrison will, I believe, give a report from staff.
Good evening. Chairman Elliott, members of the board, Ms. Rollins, and everyone virtually assembled. At this time, I would like to offer a staff recommendation regarding the proposed voluntary payment agreement for Spring Grove Solar 3. After careful review of newly adopted solar revenue sharing legislation, several meetings with Urban Grid and Spring Grove Solar, conversations with the Commissioner of the Revenue, and advisement from County Council, staff recommends the approval of the proposed voluntary payment agreement for Spring Grove Solar 3, which encompasses the adoption of revenue sharing legislation in the form of an ordinance, as well as the negotiation of a siting agreement. The proposed voluntary payment agreement will enhance the economic development of the county by allowing Spring Grove Solar to waive a portion of its tax exemption and make payments to the county in accordance with the terms outlined in the proposed agreement. And in your agenda package, you will find several documents pertaining to this agenda item, which would include escrow letter, legal memorandum, solar farm voluntary waiver letter, voluntary payment agreement, and a solar legislation packet. And that concludes my staff recommendation, and I will entertain any questions from the board.
Are there any questions for Mr. Harrison? If there are no questions for Mr. Harrison, there's a follow-up from Hefton Wiley for contractual agreement.
Yes, briefly, Mr. Chair, thank you. Just for clarification, this is a voluntary payment agreement where Spring Grove Solar is agreeing to waive a portion of its tax exemption and pay $1,400 per megawatt, which is approximately 6 megawatts, which will result in about $84,000 a year for approximately 35 years. This is just an agreement. This is not adopting a revenue share ordinance. That would have to be done by a separate process. But the agreement before you, in essence, says that Spring Grove Solar agrees to pay the $1,400 per megawatt. And in the event that the county adopts an ordinance, which it does not have to, but in the event that an ordinance is adopted, that Spring Grove Solar will come under that ordinance. But as of right now, because there's no ordinance adopted, they're just paying the $1,400 per megawatt. And I'm happy to
Thank you,
answer
Ms. Powell.
you may have.
Are there any questions from board members for Ms. Powell? If there are no questions, would there be a motion for the proposed revenue sharing agreement with Spring Grove Solar 3?
I propose that we would enter into the revenue sharing agreement with the proposed organization.
Have a motion. Can we have a second?
I'll second the motion, Mr. Chairman.
It has been properly moved and second that we will accept the proposed revenue sharing agreement with Spring Grove Solar 3. If there are no other questions, could we have a roll call vote, Ms. Chapman?
Yes, sir. Roll call, Mr. Elliott.
Yes.
Mr. Drury.
Yes.
Ms. Little.
Yes.
Mr. Holmes.
Yes.
Mr. Calhoun.
Yes.
Thank you.
Chairman Elliott?
Motion? Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. You can carry your motion. Then I ask my question. I apologize.
Yes, motion is carried. Yes, Ms. Rowland.
Yes, just a question, just for clarity purposes. Did that motion include, or should we state for the record, unless Ms. Powell advises that it does include the negotiation of the siting agreement?
Ms. Powell, could you answer that?
Yes, the voluntary payment agreement, the revenue share ordinance, and the siting agreement are all three separate things.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. So the siting agreement is not contained in this voluntary payment agreement, but there is nothing that prevents a siting agreement from being negotiated and brought back before the board. And I believe that Mr. Roger Bowers is still here, and I see him shaking his head. So he indicated willingness to continue to negotiate that, and I'm not sure if he wants to add anything additional to that.
Just to confirm that we have represented that we're more than happy to, to negotiate a siting agreement with the county as timing might permit, and appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Powell and Mr. Bowers. At this time, we will move to unfinished business. Resolution 2020-12, EOP revised. Ms. Rollins. You there, Ms. Rollins?
Yes, I am. The emergency operations plan, which was brought to the Board of Supervisors at a previous meeting, was tabled until such time we could get clarity on one item. As far as I know, that clarification has been made. Unless there's some additional questions from the Board of Supervisors, the plan that's in place did conclude the 5 years at the end of June 30th, 2020. So the Chief of Emergency Management has presented a revision to the plan. The plan does include over a dozen emergency services functions. For the purposes of not sharing that document publicly because of security purposes, just want the public to know that those documents have been shared with the Board of Supervisors. Those emergency services functions contain the identification of the primary agencies, of what the authorities are, the resources and capabilities needed to carry out various type of emergencies. The support agencies are assigned, again, based on the resources and capabilities. Tonight, we're asking for your approval so that the Chief of Emergency Management can forward the actual plan to the Virginia Department of Emergency Management. And the only thing that I would add, Mr. Chairman, if we can add in there that since this plan is done every 5 years, I believe, and Mr. Phelps, if he's on the call, he can correct me, either 4 or 5 years, that we ask for the plan to at least be revisited early on in a year if we feel that it's necessary.
It's every 4 years, Ms. Rollins.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Rollins. Board members, you heard a report from the unfinished business resolution 2020-12, the EOP. Could we get a motion for the approval of this resolution at this time?
Mr. Chairman, Judy, I recommend that we move that we would approve the EOP agreement. The emergency.
Do we have a second? Yes, ma'am. Could we get a second on the motion?
Mr. Chair, so moved.
Mr. Drew, is that you?
Yes.
It has been properly moved and second that we would approve the resolution 2020-12, the EOP. If there are no other questions on this resolution, Ms. Chapman, could we get a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Roll call, Mr. Elliott.
Yes.
Mr. Drury.
Yes.
Ms. Little.
Yes.
Mr. Holmes. Mr. Calhoun.
This is Tim Calhoun, yes.
Thank you. And I did get Mr. Holmes as well. Thank you so much.
The motion is carried. Yes.
I apologize again. I need to let you carry your motion. I apologize, sir. But the only thing that I want to add to that, which I don't foresee it being a problem, anything that's referenced in the plan that says the Surrey County Sheriff's Department, we're just going to change that terminology that says the Surrey County Sheriff's Office. And if I may, Mr. Chairman, I know that we've carried the motion and all is well, but may I just ask Mr. Phelps if he had anything that he wanted to add to that discussion, sir?
No, ma'am, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Rollins. At this time, we have a few reports. The first report is coming from the EDA, Economic Development, a report of the COVID-19 Small Business Assistance. Is Ms. Henderson on the line for a report on this? Do we have anyone to report from the EDA?
Oh,
Yes.
Do you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. So sorry. Thank you so much, Chairman Elliott, and the other members of the board, Ms. Rollins, and others joining this meeting this evening. On behalf of the EDA board, we thank you so much for asking us to administer, the Surrey County Small Business COVID-19 Grant Program, and really also for this opportunity to give you what we think are exciting results. Pardon me, I do have a cough. I'm not COVID-19, I have asthma. But anyway,
all right.
Moving right along, I would like to keep the comments as brief as possible, but put them probably into 4 buckets. We want a quick overview. We want to talk about the actual process that we use, the actual end results, which is, of course, the most important, and also a few lessons learned along the way. Starting with the actual $20,000 grant that the U Board of Supervisors established. We were actually had that grant embellished by a donation of $5,000 from the S Power Corporation, and which brought the total amount of money to be granted under this particular program to $25,000. Excuse me. The announcement for the program was placed on the county website on May 28th, and by June, and the deadline at that time was a week away, June the 5th. By June the 4th, since we only had 4 applications at that point, we asked the county to extend it to June 19th, and the county administrator was gracious enough to do that. So the new deadline date was set for June the 19th, 2020. And, excuse me, and by that date, we had received 10 applications. We did initially thought we would have more, but we were happy to have those 10 because what it presented for us was an opportunity really for those businesses that applied to really be able to give something to each of them. So on the 20th, the 19th was the deadline date. I served as the coordinator for the executive committee of the EDA board to receive the applications, make sure they were needed any documents to get them, so that when the executive committee met on June 20th, and on 20th and 21st did their own individual evaluations, and then we met on the 22nd to compare our notes. We had already established a evaluation form and weighted it according to the criteria that primarily that the county had already given us. And we met on that morning and made 10 awards. And I understand that you all do have a copy of the demographics of the businesses, general, a summary of the demographics, as well as the individual awards. It's okay with you. I'm not going to go through those numbers, those specific demographics, but I will share just a few tidbits. First of all, the average grant size for the small business was $2,250, and larger business for those with 25 employees was 6 to 25 employees was $4,757. All businesses, it wouldn't surprise you that all businesses, experience significant decreases in revenue, and 2 of the 5 that actually had to close, 2 of them have already reopened, and albeit on a limited schedule and offering basis. But the others have plans to reopen starting this month, next month. The 5 businesses that remain open managed to do so with moderate furloughs. So we're so proud of all the businesses for their extra effort to keep themselves employed, if it was a self-employed type business, or the others who had 1 or 2 other people employed as well. Most of the business have been in operation more than 5 years, but what was especially noteworthy, I think, is the fact that 4 of the businesses have been in business in Surrey County for more than 30 years or more. So I hope all of you will join us in congratulating the businesses, especially those that are listening that don't have the list. When we go over the names, we can, you'll have an opportunity to hear the names at least. Now, at this point, I'd like to see how you would like to proceed. Would you like me to just call off the names and the awards, or should I not do that because they're going to be publicized? I'm trying to be as efficient with your time as possible. Should I go through the names and the award amount? Hello?
Ms. Henderson, I don't think, yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can now.
Yes, you can list the business and the award amount. That will be fine.
Okay. They're actually no alphabetical order. I'm just giving you the names in the order they were received, the applications were received. Just for Kicks Cupcakes, and that award was $2,461. Randy Seafood Legacy for an award of $2,189. Hampton Roads Winery for an award of $2,385. Bussville Mechanic LLC, an award of $2,052. Skyrise Inc., an award of $2,308. Hagen Electrical Suppliers, an award of $4,557. L.J. Johnson Construction, an award of $2,265. Agape Hairstyling Salon, award of $2,248. Bacon Castle Supply Company, an award of $2,248. Genesis Splash Nail Salon, $2,087. And those numbers total an even $25,000. So these are all one-time awards, and each party, the board, the EDA board approved the awards that the executive committee made to it on June the 25th. On the same night, each of the companies was contacted. 8 of them were reachable by phone. 2, we had sent email, but they were all notified of their having, received an award, an amount. And on Monday, this Monday, June 29th, a letter and check was mailed to each of the businesses. In terms of lessons learned, naturally we can fine tune the process as always, no matter how well you might think it. There are always things you can do for improvement, but the biggest one that we walked away with for improvement, we have an opportunity to do this again, would be to make sure that we use that we mail the announcements as well as putting them in public places, as well as putting it on the county website. We really do need to mail the information to each of the businesses that are licensed. And by the way, I didn't realize, but if you count all of them, they're just shy of 300.
All right.
And that,
all right, thank you. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's the end of the report. Any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Henderson, for the report on the EDA with our Grants County businesses. We thank the EDA for carrying us assignment. Are there any other comments from board members on this report?
Telephone. It's nice to hear that applicants have submitted the requests that they have made.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
I was making a comment. I think it was very good that the applicants or that the persons applied for the money that became available to them. It's free money to be used in a positive way, and I feel that they used that money the way that they should have used it. And I think it's good on your part and the other members of your group's part that they process the information in order to make it available for them.
Yes, we're excited that they did as well.
All right, thank you once again from the EDA. At this time, a second report is coming from Dominion Energy Rural Broadband Project. There is not a actual presentation on this tonight, but we do have someone here from Prince George Electric, I believe, on the call if there are any questions from the board members on this project. We have the documentation from it. If there are no questions from the board members, we have our monthly project report and our Surrey County Treasurer's investment letter. Is our treasurer on the call? If not, that's for our report as well. Now, our monthly expenditure report we do have. And for information purposes, we have our Governor Northern's announcement and press release in your agenda. Also, Virginia Forward, three guidelines, a cooling assistance program. This is information for the board. At this time, we want to address citizens' comments. We want the citizens to know that we receive your emails in reference to your comments to the board, and we do give them our greatest attention. We will have our citizens, I know that there are a lot of things that you would like to be able to bring to the board during this meeting, but I know some couple of hot topics in the air at this time, and our public hearing is when we will actually give the citizens an opportunity to speak on different issues within the meeting. Due to us being virtual, we have changed the format, and because we have so many different open lines that it would be very difficult for us to hear and to manage citizens' comments in our virtual meetings. But we will make time and we will address these different things in our public hearings that are coming up. So we invite you, we want you to keep sending your comments into the board because we are giving our attention to them and they are helping us in our decision making. So please continue to send that information in for our public hearing. Are there any comments from the board members at this time before we turn it over to the county administrator?
Mr. Chair, Mike Drury.
Yes, Mr. Drury.
Just very briefly, I just wanted to thank to Ms. Rollins and staff, if anyone on call, just for that guidance and safety and everything. Hopefully our numbers are still stable here in Surrey County. This is regarding COVID. Difficult times, and other states and areas are going through difficult times, and this is just a reminder to all that this is not over yet. So please be safe, wear your mask and others. And but again, just a summary, just thanks to Ms. Rollins and staff for guiding us through all this, and Mr. Bryan for setting up these virtual meetings. Thanks again. That's it.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Drury. Any other comments from board members?
Mr. Chair, this is Tim Calhoun. Again, following Mike, Mr. Drury, thank you for the staff for working diligently through this time of COVID-19 and getting the information out and things. I'd just like to make one comment regarding the citizens' comments. You know, I know that they're put out there on the website, but for those who may not have access to the website, I would just like to ask for a possible consideration that once they are submitted in writing to the board for us to review and look at, that could it be possible that we had at least have them read by a board member or board members, maybe for each district, so that those who are able to call in and don't have the access via internet computer, that they are made aware of all the comments to be very transparent for the county.
Thank you, Mr. Calhoun. We will take that in consideration when addressing that with staff. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Judy Little, I also want to thank staff. They've worked very hard and diligent on making sure everybody's staying safe and that our community is in a good condition. And we are to agree. Thank you, staff.
Thank you, Ms. Little. You're left, Mr. Holmes. You got anything you want to tell us?
You know what they have said, and I'm about to run out of energy here. But
thank you, sir. Ditto to what everyone has said. We have some hard-working, diligent people for Surrey County, and we thank you for all that you have done, and we know that you're going to do. At this time, we will have a report from our county administrator.
Yes, good evening again, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, board members, for your comments, and certainly on the behalf of all the employees that have definitely worked hard and been diligent, as you stated. This is a perfect lead-in, I guess, to the first part of the county administrator's monthly report. I did share this with you today in an earlier email, but I do want to make you and the citizens aware that the monthly updates that I will attempt to give you every month is slated to update you as the board and the citizens on any particular news, special events, project updates, and employee and countywide accomplishments that we do in the performance of our services to the community. The first item that's on the monthly report, which I will say will be posted on the county's website, does talk about COVID-related updates. As you all are aware, Surrey County employees have resumed a modified schedule of returning to facilities with alternating schedules, making sure that offices are covered Monday through Friday. The process have been that employees, we are having our temperatures taken before entering the facilities. Emergency management in assistance with our maintenance division has been working with each department to best ensure that social distancing, PPE, and other provisions needed best to ensure a safe environment have been provided. And that includes social distance signs, mask and hand sanitizing stations, the plexiglass at various desks, the monitors at all locations, and other items that else is employing to make sure that we do stay safe as we can in our environments. Preparation and expectations for public reentry. I can say at this particular time, no date has been set for public entry. I do encourage feedback from our board members in terms of any recommendations or suggestions that you have in terms of reentry to the public. We do want to add that at such time, when public will be permitted to come back, we do want to add right now the processes that will be put in place. Persons who need to enter facility for legitimate county business will be requested to use the designated single point of entry. Other measures include, but are not limited to, the limiting number of visitors in any office. Staff have been coming up with some very creative ideas. One of them is to put a kiosk on the outside of the building of forms that may be needed by citizens requiring services, and that way they would not have to come to the building. Any announcement that we have in terms of public reentry will be made in advance. And again, we will ask that we wear a mask. Any person that does not have a mask, Mr. Phelps has secured disposable masks, and one will be given to them. In addition to forehead temperatures, we'll be taking any specific health screening questions that we may need to ask. So those are some of the guidelines that we believe need to be in place in the time that we have reentry for the public at such time that is scheduled. Another idea has been put out in terms of having scheduled appointments. So we're exploring those particular ideas before we're able to make an announcement in terms of a date, in addition to waiting for additional feedback from the board. As it relates to COVID testing, the Chief of Emergency Management, Mr. Phelps, is responsible for coordinating with the Crater Health District testing locations and sites, and they will be scheduled in accordance to criteria and guidelines established by the district. And Mr. Phelps will, I believe, after my report, give a specific update on the COVID-19 testing and numbers of where we are. As Mr. Elliott mentioned, in the Board of Supervisors packet, you do have some information on Governor Northam's Phase 3 reopening. And we just want to again remind the citizens that that information is always posted on our website for our citizens to be aware of that information. The Crater Health District, per a phone call this week with Dr. Hart, the physician, the director, excuse me, of the Crater Health District, is requesting assistance from all localities in its marketing campaign efforts termed Virginia's Health is in Your Hands. And it stresses individual responsibility and message from Virginia's leadership. And that talks about the importance of, again, the collective responsibility of working together to help contain the virus so that we can safely reopen. So you will see eventually additional information, signs and guidance, and any particular request in terms of a monetary request may come from the health district to help get that campaign out to all the jurisdictions in the Crater Health District. In terms of what can we do as citizens to stay at home, now we want to say that there are safe and convenient options for paying your taxes. So if there's any taxpayer that wants to stay at home and to make any payments on taxes, you can do that through the Official Payments Corporation. That information, of course, is available on our website. You can always contact our treasurer. And also to remind citizens that there is a drop box for the convenience of yourselves that's located at the rear of the government center at the far end of the parking lot near the sheriff's office. And those payments can be made before and after regular business hours in a secure manner. The Surrey County Emergency Operations Center and Volunteer Rescue Squad nears completion. As I mentioned at the previous meeting, if you go by the building, it looks like someone can just move in as of today. However, we want to provide just a brief update. Again, it is nearing completion. The welcoming design brings character and excitement to the community, and the employees and volunteers that would take refuge in it real soon, the new space, would definitely appreciate all that has gone into making that a wonderful facility for the community. We do want to share that there is some additional work that needs to be done in the inside of the facility as pertains to outfitting it for various in the various offices, furnishings. There's some technology infrastructure that needs to go in, telephone systems, additional work by Dominion. And all of this work is to take place over the next several months. Of course, the COVID-19 pandemic has obviously caused some delay in the process. The remaining work to be done will be done in a safe and responsible manner as we continue to navigate through the pandemic. And once it's completed and safe to do so, the Department of Emergency Management, coordinated by Mr. Phelps, will certainly schedule, I'm sure, an open house or other similar activity to officially introduce the facility to the community and all the stakeholders. New hours for our Solid Waste Convenience Center, effective August 1st, 2020. All solid waste convenience centers hours will change from Monday through Friday. The new hours during the weekdays will be from 8 a.m. to 6 o'clock p.m. There will be no change in the weekend and holiday hours. The change, of course, is a result of the budget reductions that were necessitated for fiscal year 2021. Now, although those hours will change, the outstanding services provided to the county's hardworking solid waste attendants to citizens will remain the same. 4th of July activities. To comply with no large gatherings as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, localities have canceled normal 4th of July celebrations. Surrey County Parks and Recreation have placed signs at the gateways of the county wishing our citizens a happy 4th of July and encourages all to continue social distancing during recreational activities. Mr. Jones wants to advise everyone that there's plenty of walking room at the Parks and Recreation Center, at the driveways and the perimeters if you want to walk and exercise during the pandemic. The farmers market operations will remain open until further notice, also due to the pandemic. Ms. White has indicated that if we know of farmers or other market-related vendors that would like assistance in marketing and selling their produce or goods to the community, the mobile market operated by the Cooperative Extension is a viable option. Do not let produce go to waste in the community. Please contact Ms. LaSonia White to if you want assistance in selling your produce and product. Mrs. Henderson had just announced the EDA business assistance grants that definitely helped our local economy during the COVID-19. And again, we certainly appreciate the Board of Supervisors' support and the recommendation of the Economic Director to create that business assistance relief grant in efforts to show support and provide that financial assistance to the local businesses in our community that have been adversely impacted by the pandemic. Employee spotlights. Ms. LaSonia Beatty has retired from Surrey County after 35 years of service with Surrey County. A resolution outlining her service will be presented, I believe, when we have our next non-virtual meeting, unless Mr. Phelps wants to have it before. She did have a social distance retirement off, and it went very, very well. And we do want to just congratulate now, but we do look forward to giving her resolution from the Board of Supervisors when it is appropriate to to do so. 35 years is a very long time. Ms. Beatty started out in administration and ended up in emergency services. And I will not share any more. It's the thunder of Mr. Phelps when it's time to present that information to the board. We do want to also highlight Mr. David Harrison. If you would go to the Virginia Department of Education website, there is a section on that that talks about career success stars. And it highlights those high school professionals, I can say, that who have advanced in career and technology when they were in high school, and it talks about their advancement in their current profession. So we congratulate Mr. Harrison for being featured in a video and a story on the Virginia Department of Education website underneath Career Success Stars. We do also recognize that we have received a couple of inquiries as far as needing to update and refresh our website, and I'm pleased to say that we have diligent staff who have heard the call and recognize that we do want to update and refresh our website. We do understand sometimes citizens and board members that it can be frustrating when we do have outdated information on the website. Tell you that this is something that all small localities go through in terms of being able to keep that information up to date. But we are working to provide a improvement in this service to our citizens. Features will include a refreshed design and definitely to be able to integrate mobile applications and so forth. We're definitely looking forward to that, and I know that our citizens will enjoy that upgrade when it happens. I'm reminding to everyone the next item that the meals tax is in effect July 1st. Any questions, we directed them to the Commissioner of Revenue. That meals tax is 6%, and businesses will be expected to report August 1st, 2020, and our Commissioner of Revenue has been working diligently with those businesses as far as those processes. Again, we are pleased to see that we received the report today that effective July 1st, of course, you all had already been made aware that Grace Creek, the 6th mile, has been designated as a Virginia River. It is nice to see that information in print. So we do want to, again, thank all the citizens who worked diligently in making that possible and staff who assisted that in that effort for Surrey County. It is definitely a win for our community. We want to remind citizens again that the various information and reports that have been listed in the Board of Supervisors material, one of the items that is listed in there is information on the census, and it talks about all the work that the Census Committee has done, will continue to do to push our census. And one of the dates is the July 17, 2020 Census Drive-Through Parade in the various towns. And we are, I was asked to ask the board members, and you can let me know offline, as to whether or not you all be willing to be the leaders of those parades in your specific town. So I can get back with you a little bit later on that, but that was a request for you all to be the first ones to lead that push parade on July 17, 2020. And all I can say at the very end is that on tomorrow, again, 4th of July, the county offices employees will be observing the Independence Day holiday, and have a safe and enjoyable holiday. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Rollins, for the report given, and we thank you for being so diligent to your duties and tasks as the new county administrator of Surrey, Virginia. At this time, Mrs. Powell have a remark that she would like to give.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just like to add to the minutes that this July 2nd meeting is being held by electronic as a result of the continued public health emergency, which was declared by Governor Northam, and as was amended by his Executive Order 51 due to COVID-19. And as such, it has been determined that it is unsafe during this time to physically assemble. And if that could be included in the minutes, I would appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Powell. Also, Mr. Phelps, if you are on the line, could you give us an update on the COVID situation in the county? You still here with us?
What would be
Can you hear me now?
Mr. Phelps, are you still?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Over the past several days, Surrey County has experienced the positive COVID-19 cases. We currently have 17 positive cases. While our case count is still significantly low compared to other localities, the surrounding localities are increasing as well. Since Saturday, they've had 75 new cases been reported in the Crater Health District. So, like Mr. said, this is not over. The Crater Health District has noticed that there has been a lack in willingness of new cases to share information with our contact tracers. I would like to urge those individuals that do test positive for the COVID virus to cooperate with the Crater Health District contact tracers. This will help protect the welfare and safety of all of our citizens in Surrey County. It's a little disheartening the amount of work that's going in to trying to keep everybody safe and to test individuals, and then when somebody does test positive, they're not willing to share any information to help prevent the spread. So we're trying to do what we can to get everybody on board on that. The unwillingness to share this information increases the importance of everyone wearing a mask, as well as creating that social distancing. You must protect yourself and others during this pandemic. Emergency management will be teaming up with the Crater Health District to offer testing in areas where individuals have difficulty acquiring transportation to testing sites. July 30th, we will be conducting COVID testing at the Surrey Village Apartments. I do not have all the details as of yet, but we're working with the Crater Health District on the date. The date is definitely set as July 30th. In August, we should be back at the Surrey County Parks and Rec Center doing a testing there, and then after that, we will be at Pools Mobile Home Park. But I would like to take this time to ask all the citizens doing everything we can do to comply with the recommendations of the CDC to help prevent the spread of the COVID virus.
Thank you, Mr. Phelps. Thank you for the job that you are doing in these critical times, and the Department of Emergency Services. Thank you for all of your efforts. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
At this time, we will entertain well, before we adjourn, just want to let the citizens know, everybody that may be listening, that the public hearing that we have scheduled for August, it will be advertised in the paper with instructions for you to make any statements that you want to make to be heard on the next public hearing in August. Please follow the instructions that will be given in our public announcement. And also, at this time, we would entertain a motion for adjournment until July the 16th, in which the board or the supervisor. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, I have one question before we go. In terms of us observing social distance as members of the Board of Supervisors and essential government employees that would come to our meetings, what is the negative impact of us attempting to actually meet as members of the Board of Supervisors at a meeting in the government centers distantly, or what are the pros and cons of that? I mean, we haven't talked about that.
I thank you for your inquiry, Mr. Holmes. The con is that, according to CDC regulations, that any in-house gathering, inside gathering, increases the potential of the spread of the virus. So that is why the state is still under a state of an emergency, and as long as we are under the state of an emergency, we feel, based upon talking to board members and staff, that this is the best way to prevent the spread of the virus and not bring the public in, because the guidance is still there. The state is opening up to stage 3 possibly. But just because they're doing it, we still need to take the necessary steps that we think is best for the citizens of Surrey County. So the inside gathering, coming together in a setting such as that, increases the percentage of the virus being spread. So that is why we're
I'm
choosing
thinking
at this
strictly
time
about
to.
the board of supervisors, not other people that come to meetings. But I'm in agreement with whatever we do. I'm just kind of lonesome for being involved with members of the board of supervisors. But I agree. I'm not disagreeing with that.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. We will definitely, as a board, be communicating on this and make any adjustments as we see available to us. So we will be definitely in communication with that.
Okay.
If there are no other comments from the board, we will entertain a motion for adjournment for until July the 16th for a work session for the Board of Supervisors. And the
Mr.
time
Chair.
for that will be 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock, July the 16th.
Mr. Chair, so moved. Tim Calhoun.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We probably moving second. Could we have a roll call vote for Ms. Chapman?
Yes, sir. Roll call, Mr. Elliott.
Yes.
Mr. Drury.
Yes.
Ms. Little.
Yes.
Mr. Holmes.
Yes.
Mr. Calhoun.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion is carried. The meeting is adjourned. Everybody still be safe and take the proper precautions that we may be able to continue to serve Surrey County. God bless you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.